The Syracuse football depth chart for week one against Louisville has been released. Owen and I have some takes, some perspectives. We'll share them with you. It's on Lockdown Syracuse. It's right now.
Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on your Tuesday morning episode. Thanks for making Lockdown Syracuse your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. We're talking depth chart today. We have been talking about it. When is the depth chart for Syracuse football going to come out? It comes out on Monday, the day before you listen to this. So let's hop right into it. I will share my screen and then we can look at it. Okay, we're looking at it together. Here it is. Now, there are plenty of observations that we can make right off the jump, but Owen, if it's all the same to you, I think we should go position by position.
I like that. I'm going to throw an apology out early. If you live in Syracuse, it's currently Monday night as we record. There's a pretty good rainstorm happening outside. So if you hear some rain, I apologize. If thunder happens, I apologize. But I don't think it should be too big a deal. But yeah, let's go position by position. Start with the quarterbacks.
Okay. So Schrader, we knew was the starter, and I think it was kind of a shoe-in that Carlos Del Rio Wilson was the backup, but not 100%. I probably would have put like an 80% chance on that, not 100, but Carlos Del Rio Wilson does get the nod. Good news, I'd say, because it means he doesn't stink. And I mean, for the people out there who are the presidents of the Jacoby and Morgan fan club, this one might sting. But it's Carlos's time. I think we all know that, or at least it will be in a couple of seasons. So no surprises at quarterback.
No, I think when you look at this and you see that Dan Villari is taking snaps at wide receiver, he was also in that conversation. I think that should say enough in terms of this whole situation. Carlos Del Rio Wilson seems like he picked up the offense pretty quickly. I know every piece of this offense is still learning things under the new offensive coordinator and Robert and I. But when you look at the snaps that Del Rio Wilson was taking in media opportunities during preseason camp, I think he was the clear option, and I think you sort of saw that he was going to be the number two, and it was relatively evident based on things that you heard, things that you saw, and just sort of the overall vibe around what he was able to do in really really rapidly picking up this offense and showing his stuff.
And Dan Villari pretty much has officially become a wide receiver for Syracuse. That's what we learned today, Monday, that is. There is a chance he'll go back to quarterback at some point, but I think moving forward, he will be a wide receiver. Dino and the coaching staff say they just want him to be able to be useful somewhere because he's such a great athlete. So if we see him at all, it'll probably be at wideout. Okay, moving on. Sean Tucker's the starter. We knew that. LeQuint Allen gets the RB2 slot, and I couldn't be happier about it. I think that was the right choice. A lot of people, some people were tweeting at us, commenting in our YouTube comments saying that Jawan Price was going to be the RB2. It's not the case. LeQuint Allen, the true freshman, comes in, takes that spot. We know he pulled down a couple of Hail Marys at training camp. I think if we see him at all, it'll be in a Cooper Lutz type of role where if he's on the field, he's either going to catch the ball or be blocking. I don't know how many handouts he's going to take, but LeQuint Allen, I'm happy he gets that spot.
Yeah, good for him. And there was a little competition for that. And I don't think, as you were saying, when you look at comments, ideas, preseason before preseason camp thoughts, it seemed like Jawan Price could have easily been that guy to slot into the RB2 position. And LeQuint Allen, earned his spot, right? There's a lot of shakeups that happen in camp. There's a lot of things that you're battling for and working to learn. And it just seemed like LeQuint Allen did the right things consistently throughout camp. There was the day where, he snags back to back or, two Hail Marys in one practice. Seems like he was really just figuring things out and doing his part when he could, right? When you've got a workhorse like Sean Tucker that's going to be getting rep after rep after rep after rep and carry after carry after carry, game in and game out. This backup role, I think, can be more important than you might think, considering how many carries people want and how many carries you'd expect Sean Tucker to get. If Sean needs to come off the field, as you might expect someone to do when they're getting the ball as often as Sean Tucker might be, LaQuint Allen's going to be, in the backfield every game for a little period of time. So this is a big win for him. Congrats to him. And it's just sort of cool to see or just a true freshman come in and battle and win a spot. And I think it's a good sign for the position. Maybe he is the guy as you move forward and Sean Tucker leaves, whenever that may be.
Chris Elmore comes back as the fullback. Hopefully, we see a full, healthy season out of him. I know I want it, and everybody else does as well.
Yeah.
We've seen him be the tight end one. We've seen him on the depth chart as an offensive lineman. The dude can do it all. So Elmore's back. That's exciting. But on to tight end, this is the first piece of kind of big news, if you want to even call it that. Aronde Gadsden, who I think everybody knew or at least thought was going to be a wide receiver for this team and one that was probably going to be included in the offense's game plan, is at tight end one. He's 6'5",
Yeah.
216, maybe a little bit undersized at 216, but how about it? Tight end one for him. I'm glad to see that this probably means they're going to utilize a receiving tight end for the first time since Aaron Hackett caught a touchdown in 2019.
Yeah, this is, from what I've understood, and
Oh, he'll be back in a second. I swear. That storm in Syracuse. It's really picking up, I assume. Here he is.
we're back. Sorry, Stephen Bailey, been here, all preseason, giving us the eyes from camp. He seems to be saying that this isn't necessarily your true tight end role, and it's more.
Wow. He's getting kicked out like nobody's business. But what he said, he's back. I'll let him answer.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. The internet doing its thing. It's a flex spot. So yes, he's going to be lining up as a tight end, but this is going to be a position that bounces around, and it's not going to be the most consistent role in terms of him just lining up as a true tight end, play in and play out. He's going to move. There are going to be a lot of different looks. Stephen Bailey mentioned at Virginia under Robert and I's offense there, one of their receivers, Keaton Thompson, sort of had that similar role that he thinks Aronde Gadsden might play. And in 2021, he had 1,200 total yards, would line up, in a wildcat type, getting direct snaps, would be getting, in motion, going into the backfield, taking carries, lining up as sort of that tight end slot. This is something that you could see Gadsden doing easily as Anai gets things going at Syracuse. I think, yes, you're going to see him line up as a tight end, but you're also going to see him out in the slot. You might see him, moving in, pausing in the backfield, getting a carry or two. You might see him doing just so many different things. So this is sort of that. This is not a knock at Aronde Gadsden and his receiving abilities by any means. I think this and him being listed at the tight end in what Robert and I's sort of definition of the tight end is in this offense, this could mean that he is going to be their guy, that they consistently target and do almost anything that they can to get him the ball. And I think that's a really good nod to what Gadsden's shown and what he can do this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on, let me just read a quick advertisement from BetOnline. BetOnline.net's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, we're back talking about the depth chart that just came out for Syracuse football. We go from tight end to the wide receiver core. Some shakeup in the wide receiver core. We left the 2021 season thinking that the makeup of it would be Courtney Jackson at 1, Quealy at 2, and then Damian Alford at 3. Now, that is just not the case at all. Alford comes in as the number 1, Courtney Jackson as the 2, and Devon Cooper as the three with Isaiah Jones and Trevor Pena listed as backups. No Anthony Queally in sight. Now, I don't know if he's injured or he just didn't play well enough to earn a spot, but I will not come on this podcast and say I was confident in Anthony Queally at any point. I saw that man just have touchdowns fly through his hands on multiple occasions. I can't say I'm surprised.
I I I I guess I expected him to be on here in
So
some
did I.
capacity, not necessarily as the number 3 that maybe, walking into the season we thought. But I am, very, very interested to see, why he's not there. We haven't really heard anything as to the rationale. It could have just been as simple as, these are the top 5 wide receivers, and Queally didn't make the cut in terms of making the
Yeah.
first depth chart. That is a legitimate possibility. We don't really know. It's very interesting. It's a funky takeaway from this, and something that I definitely wasn't expecting. But as you were saying, he needed to make some steps to improve. And maybe when you look at guys like Isaiah Jones and Devon Cooper and Trevor Pena, even picking up that last sort of listing here, they've been doing more. They've been showing more, and maybe it's just you lose a position battle sometimes.
Last night after we finished recording the pod, I fell into a YouTube rabbit hole of Jamal Custis highlights. I
Oh,
mean, he was the wide receiver one when I was a freshman, so I have a special bond to him. Me and Locked On Blue Jays host Ben Schulman were watching them. And Alford kind of gives me those vibes. Custis was 6'5", Alford is 6'6". He's a massive person, and to have your wide receiver be able to go up and just moss guys like Custis made plays that I don't think people remember. Like he was so darn good. And when DeVito came in, the DeVito to Custis connection, DeVito's senior year, was so underrated. I mean, Custis was so darn good. Not saying Alfred's going to be that good, but I hope he is. That would be awesome if they had a guy who
why
could be
not?
that big. What a, like a big, like a real NFL body at wide receiver comes in and could make plays like that. That would be freaking awesome. Also, good to see Isaiah Jones healthy, ready to go for week one, and he
Yeah,
makes the depth chart. I'm pretty pumped to see what he can do on the field as well. I expected Aronde Gadsden and Umari Hatcher to be there. No Umari Hatcher, that's the other big news. And of course, Gadsden at tight end. So those explains that, or that explains that. But no Hatcher, no Queally, which is the interesting part about the receiver core. All right, let's move on to the offensive line. It's pretty much
this is.
chalk.
I was just gonna say chalk right here. It's what
Yeah.
we expected.
Bergeron, Ellis, Vettorello, Bleish, Davis left to right. I think that's exactly what we all expected, with Josh Iloa being the backup at center, Enrique Cruz at the blind side. I mean, yeah, it's chalk. That's exactly what we all expected. And let's reiterate real quick that the starting offensive linemen all weigh over 300 pounds or within 10 pounds of 300 pounds. Like, that's
Yeah,
crazy. These guys are huge. They have the potential to be really, really, really special.
yeah,
So if they can be, and Schrader can maybe utilize his noodle arm better than he did last year, they'll have a chance at something on the offensive end, not just on the ground. Okay,
yeah.
let's swap over to defense unless you have any offensive points you want to get in.
I was just gonna, reiterate from left to right: 322, 375, 292, 326, and 335. Those are some bodies on the offensive line.
Big boys.
And as we've been discussing, and as we bring it up, likely the best O line you've seen since 2018. And maybe, depending on how changes have happened in the offseason, who got better, maybe they can give a little bit of a case for, being, right on par with 2018. So good to see that. I don't think there's any surprise there. Enrique Cruz, Josh Iloa, being the two that we would think would slot in regardless of who goes down, if someone goes down. But that's exactly what we thought in terms of the O line.
Yep. All right, on to defense. Immediately in the
Yeah,
defensive line, there's something to talk about. Steve Linton, nowhere to be seen. And my first reaction to that was he's probably injured, which ended up being the case. He was banged up, but not the entire case. Stephen Bailey, our friend of the pod, asked Babers today about where is Steve Linton on this list. And Babers said he was banged up, but he's going to be ready to go by game day. So he just didn't make the cut, which I can't say again that I'm entirely surprised about. We've talked about it on here before. People have gotten upset about it, but hey, it's the truth. He was less than 220 pounds. How can you confidently put your hand on the ground as a defensive lineman when you can't break 220 pounds? You're not, Syracuse isn't the only offensive line with guys at these weights. You can't
No,
push guys around when you're not big enough. And that's exactly what they went for. Jatius Gear, 233. Terry Lockett, 270. Caleb Okachukwu, 268. These are big guys. Jatius Gear, redshirt freshman, hasn't seen game action, but I'm excited to see what he can do. Stephen Bailey told us he has been one of the guys, one of the kids who's impressive. Same with Dennis Jaquez Jr. So those two guys looking to make an impact, maybe, just maybe, they could have a diamond in the rough season. Don't forget about what happened last year with Cody Roscoe. Nobody saw Cody Roscoe coming.
no.
Everybody thought, all right, this defensive line is going to stink. And they were fantastic because Cody Roscoe, a 2-star transfer from McNeese State, came in and made a difference. So you don't know what you're going to get with these young guys on the defensive line, but don't just count them out. A lot of people just counting them out. I don't know necessarily that they're going to be great, but give them a chance.
No,
Very
and this
exciting
is
nonetheless.
definitely, yeah, this is definitely a unit too where, it is relevant to look at who is listed second on these lists. And I think Babers' quote today is, they're not twos, they're one and a halves for a
Yes,
lot
that
of
was
these
it.
guys. So, when you look at the D line and you see a guy like Dennis Jacques Jr. or Chase Simmons, those aren't guys to completely write off as, oh, they're second on this list. Don't worry about them. These are very much guys that are going to rotate through and you will see on the field, most likely against Louisville. It's funky to see that Steve Litton isn't on this list at all. And then Dino fires back and says that yeah, he's healthy and will be available for Saturday. So that says something. But I think these are 5 names when you look at Tachias Gear, Dennis Jacquez Jr., Terry Lockett, Caleb Okachukwu, and Chase Simmons that you're going to see rotating through on Saturday, and guys that you should become familiar with throughout the year.
Absolutely. Linebacking core, once again, chalk, although the backups I am interested in. You've got 3 redshirt freshmen, Leon Lowry, Austin Roon, and Derek McDonald.
McDonald,
Derek McDonald, a former tight end, as we all know. So that's the cool story there. Excited to see how a 6'4 linebacker plays for Syracuse. That's going to be awesome. All
yeah,
3 of the backups are huge. Leon
yeah,
Lowry,
6'4",
6'4,
6'3",
225.
4.
Roon, 6'3, 228. McDonald, 6'4, 225. These guys are massive playing
Yeah.
backup linebacker. So that's awesome. Look forward to the future. And then, I mean, I don't have a ton on the linebacking core if you do.
No, I think you said it. You can move right on. I mean, there's not really a surprise there. That is as, pretty much we go with the
It's
O
the most,
line and
yeah,
them as chalk as you can find for this
yeah.
team right now.
Okay, so secondary, again, where it gets incredibly interesting. Garrett Williams, not a surprise. Deuce Chestnut, not a surprise. But Jeremiah Wilson breaks through. He's going to be backing up Garrett, which I think everybody's really pumped to see Jeremiah after
Yeah,
that one-handed interception in camp. And he's just kind of been the talk of the town. The famous, now kind of famous story of him on his visit, not wanting to go to the bars, rather wants to go and work out at the field. That's awesome.
that's great.
Um, and Isaiah Johnson in there as well, redshirt junior. Good to see him potentially making an impact behind Deuce this year. And then how about the safeties? Jihad starting. So Jason Simmons, a guy that transferred here from New Mexico State, came here because he wants to go to the NFL. Now backing up Jihad Carter, I would not be surprised if he works his butt off and overtakes Jihad by the end of the season, but it won't be because Jihad's not playing well. So you'll just have 2 really good boundary safeties. Rover, Justin Barron, exciting to see him. Baber said in the press conference today that he is playing for the first time without pain in a really long time, so he can only is focusing on football for a while. That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
And behind him, Rob Hanna. And before we go any further and talk about the next 2 guys, I just want to say Neil Nunn, nowhere to be found. And he was one of those guys who was in 2020 one of like the breakthrough DBs. Like it was Jihad, it was Rob Hanna, it was Garrett, and it was Neil Nunn, who everybody kind of learned the names of. No Neil Nunn. So I don't know where he is. No Amon Greenwood either. So Syracuse, maybe an upgrade. Okay. Elijah Clark, Braylon Oliver, they're looking pretty good. Everybody's talking about Elijah Clark at safety. Braylon Oliver as well as a name that we've heard plenty. Both transfers. Elijah Clark from Rutgers. I'm excited to see what he does. Cinco, and he wears a look at this man. Look at this man.
Put it
He
up.
wears a
There
he
we
wears a
go.
dollar sign chain in his. I love him. I already love. He's a baller. I love him. He's we've heard about him seeming pretty darn good in practice. So I'm excited to see what he can do on the field. But other than that, I think they have a really strong secondary.
I do too. And then you look at, Braylon Oliver back there too is a Louisville transfer for what that's worth. So, spent some time there. I don't know how much intel there is. Maybe he has the secret code to stopping Malik Cunningham. Who knows?
I doubt it. Billy Cunningham's going to be tough.
Yeah,
But the
we'll get
secondary
into
looks
that
good,
tomorrow.
man. Looks
Yeah,
really good. And I
they
think
are.
I'm most confident with the secondary. Maybe the linebackers and Sean, of course. But I'm really confident with the secondary.
I mean, the back eight is really cool to see sort of come together and have some names pop up in terms of a guy like Elijah Clark, and even Justin Barron too, and I mean, really, when you look at the safeties, to see them sort of pop up, and I think you are correct in that this Jahad Carter, Jason Simmons battle that could ensue for snaps and as much time as they can humanly possibly get in that position. It's going to be fun to watch, and that's so much what you want is that competition to see, push Jihad, push Jason, both of them, wanting to get up, get them snaps, and just be, the best version they can be, and that is just going to elevate the play that you're going to see in that Syracuse secondary even more. So I think that's something that is definitely worth keeping an eye on, and I'm sure this is not the only time we will mention it in the upcoming season. But definitely, I do think it's cool to see this secondary come together. I think I will still side with the linebackers right now, but if things work out the way they might with the secondary, I think they're going to have a pretty good case come Monday when we talk about opening week performances.
Yeah, and Syracuse uh, has the most returners among ACC schools, 17 returning
17 to
starters,
22.
which is pretty freaking cool,
Yeah,
and does a lot for a team. I think an underrated amount. So that's something to look out for as well. But a lot of experience coming back for SU on offense and defense. Let's move to special teams. The battle everybody has wanted to hear about, the punting battle, has been won by the man from Wagga Wagga, Max von Marburg, and I couldn't be happier about it.
has it? There's an or listed there.
There is an or, but I'm just taking the man on top right now.
Is it? I wouldn't be shocked if they
I
both
bet you he
punt
makes the
on
first punt.
Saturday.
I bet you he
I,
makes
I
the
think
first punt.
I think that's a good argument and a good idea. I would by no means be shocked to see them both punt on Saturday.
Listen, man, James Williams last year, he might have been better punting backwards. That guy, he really was brutal. I mean, and he didn't have easy shoes to fill with Sterling Hoffrichter out the way, but still, he was
Yeah,
just terrible.
I
I
know.
can't imagine Max von Marburg is a lot worse. So I'm
True.
hoping Marburg comes in and is fantastic.
I would
Now,
assume you are correct.
Andre Schmidt, of course, back, the 2018 Lou Groza Award winner, who was not good last year, but hopefully he can kind of regain and make a case for the NFL this time around. Aaron Belinsky back, the senior at long snapper. He's named a captain this year, so that's kind of exciting for special teams.
Let's
And
have
then
some fun older.
how about the holder?
Oh yeah,
Justin Barron, the Rover, is the first string holder. What?
yeah.
Like that's like what did he do to get to this spot? Like, are they going to run trick plays and have
I hope
Justin
so.
Barron run around the field?
I hope so.
That would be cool.
Why not? You're a pure athlete.
But
Right.
like, why him? Like,
I don't know.
Weird. It's so weird. But I'm
Are they
actually
telling
really
you that
pumped to
he's
see
just
it. I
gonna pull
wonder
down
how many college
interceptions because he's
teams.
got hands like that?
I wonder how many college teams don't have a punter holding kicks.
That's a good question. If someone wants to research it, that'd be great.
I have no idea. I'll do
It's
it later.
not. I mean, that's just our backup quarterback. Something. Justin Barron. I'm excited.
I can't wait to see it live on
Yeah, it's
Saturday.
gonna be fun. I don't know. I don't think this is like a ploy to be pulling trick plays left and right, as much as it is just, sometimes you have to throw a guy somewhere for what's
What
best
do
for
you
the
mean?
team.
He's safety holding. This is not the case of throwing a guy somewhere. He is a safety that is holding kicks. What are you talking about? This is
He's got
insane.
great hands, soft hands.
All right, man. I'm pumped about that. And then kick returner, of course, Mr. Trevor Pena, who looked pretty good pretty much all of last season, but I think surprised everybody against Ohio game one in Peden Stadium. Played pretty well. So let's hope Trevor plays well again this season. Also caught a 60-yard touchdown against Clemson, I believe, which is pretty cool. But anyway, that's the Syracuse depth chart. We're pumped about it. We know you're pumped about it. That's all I got, man. You got any
Yeah,
final points?
I think we covered it. The big takeaways, I think, sort of just go back to when you look at LaQuint Allen ended up winning the RB2 spot. I don't think it's a surprise. Rio Wilson ends up as QB2. I think my biggest one is Aronde Gadsden at tight end, and
That's so
Jatius
cool.
Gear at
I'm
defensive
pumped
end
that they're
were
going to
sort of
use
my
a
two
tight
big
end again.
ones.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, and then I guess my sleeper pick for most surprising is Justin Barron at at your folder.
So cool.
But I think a lot of this, it's good to see this, right? This comes out. It seems like randomly. Dino will be like, "Oh, we don't have a depth chart. We don't have a depth chart. Bang, here's the depth chart." So it's fun to see this. It's fun to sort of see, what was just preseason talk and what is actually come to fruition. I think you see that in LaQuint Allen. I think you see that in Jeremiah Wilson. I think you see that in Elijah Clark. But we've got a two deep, and we've got a football game on Saturday, and it is exciting to be right there and on the brink of week one with a huge game in the dome. And this is just what I needed to get me even more fired up for this weekend.
Same. All right. Well, that's all we have today on Locked On Syracuse. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode covering SU athletics, but getting more on the ACC by making Locked On ACC your second listen every day. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you across the ACC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On ACC your second listen. That's Locked On ACC. Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine. We will catch you tomorrow. Peace.